Our story starts at the new long-range test facility of the United States of America's Air Force in Cape Canaveral, Florida, March 18th, 1951. During the first launch, it's the Little Leo sounding rocket. It flies for 1 minute, 30 seconds. It achieves an altitude of 6,781 meters high and hits a speed of 539 meters per second. And it's going to come crashing down not too far from the pad. Now, a look at the RP-0 tech tree. With the 4 science they gained from the first launch contract, they will select supersonic plane development, supersonic flight, and post-war material science. They grab an altitude sounding rocket low contract to reach 38,000 meters. They begin building the next sounding rocket, the Kerbalized. That'll take 92 days, and we get 3 upgrade points. So we throw 1 in the space plane hangar, and then the rest in R&D, because I am stocking very heavily in R&D, because I want to get this tech done as fast as possible. On May 16th, the supersonic plane development tech is finished. 4 days later, on May 20th, Mission Control gets an upgrade, and they immediately start on the next one. This upgrade allows 3 contracts. The next one will be 5 contracts. The Kerbalized gets finished. It has a 3-day rollout, and then is ready for launch. It is June 21st. It takes off. Little booster separation, and now it is running on the sustainer engine. This launch of a Kerbalized rocket will go for 5 minutes and 13 seconds. It completes the 38,000 meter contract by going 43,347 meters high. It has a top speed of 813 meters per second. It demonstrates multiple engine lights, and it flies out into the Atlantic. And then they grab early material science, post-war rocketry testing, early rocketry 1950 to 1951, and early solid rocket engines. Then another low altitude sounding rocket contract, this time to reach 53 kilometers. August 10th, supersonic flight tech finishes, which means the Air Force can start building their new jet, the KA-J2W, with an estimated time of 214 days and 8 hours. The morning of September 14th, the second Kerbalized is ready for flight. It lasts 5 minutes and 32 seconds. It reaches 58,209 meters and gets to a speed of 708 meters per second. It gets kind of out of control and doesn't head out to the Atlantic like it's supposed to. Instead, it goes inland, almost making it all the way to the Gulf. Luckily, it comes down in uninhabited land. They grab another contract for 58 kilometers, which they just hit. So they decide they're going to push further for 70 to unlock some more contracts. Post-war science finishes up, and November 10th, Mission Control does. And it adds a sweet new little antenna dish there. December 10th, the third Kerbalized is ready for liftoff. Ignition, it takes off. Oh, the second stage ignites slightly early, exploding the starter booster. The flight still lasts 5 minutes and 53 seconds. It does reach 70,870 meters. They got all the way to the Gulf this time, with a new speed record of 939 meters per second. That'll wrap up 1951. March 13th, 1952. The Air Force's new jet, the KA-J2W, is ready for our and its first flight. Jet takes the controls for just a quick little fly around the complex. He has had positive lift. His gear is up. Looks like he's just kind of flattening out for a little cruise now. He's going to fly over and check out the construction of all the new future upcoming launch sites, VAB buildings. Look at all these launch sites here. Around to a few more, ones down in the very south of Cape Canaveral. As he makes this little turn, you can see the skid strip there. Now he's coming in for a landing. This is the Truthful Katniss Cape Canaveral mod, I believe it's called. It's pretty sweet. I mean, free mod. It's a little off skewed, kind of in the ocean, but it's cool. It looks really neat. I like it. Get around with it. And now the job's coming in here for a smooth landing. Hopefully it's smooth, right? Looks smooth. Ooh, there's a little hot. Other than that, it was good. Throttles down. And here's the Final Frontier mod, where he withstood some G-forces in his first landing on Kerbal. Then, early in the morning, on March 20th, Vale has a contract to reach 2,500 meters in the KAJ-QW. She finds herself in an awkward starting position, thanks to the engineers changing the front spring rates. She manages to get it level, and then heads off down the runway. Lifts, positive gain, up goes land gear, and she's off to do this contract. Then have a little sightseeing in the time being. Now it's probably a good time to say like, subscribe if you like this kind of stuff so you can see more of it. And as always, thank you for watching. Like he's turning in to come on back home for a nice little land. Let's hope whatever they did to that front spring makes the landing better, because it started off kind of funky. I really do like this Cape Canaveral mod, even if it is a little wonky and it's not quite in the right position, kind of more in the ocean than it is on land. We got a little side skewing here. Get it straight, Val, get it straight. Still coming in kind of sideways, a little crooked like. Put it in. Right now, see the shadow. Look good. Just a tiny bounce. A couple of skips, but way better than it's been. Way to go, engineers. Vela gets her badge for landing on Kerbin. We stop in first strategy to boldly go one. It's Jeb's turn. This time, he's gonna go to 2,500 meters for 50 seconds and break 100 meters per second. He's taking the skies on March 24th, early in the morning. They moved that front landing gear up slightly more to the front before he took off this time. Let's hope the landing's even better than before. Just nice little cruise around the Cape. They just keep cruising around the Cape. Coming in for his landing. Let's see how that gear works this time. He's not side skirting all over like Val was. Oh, that was quite a skip. They need to figure something out there. As they just keep going back and forth, Val, March 28th, takes to the skies again. Once again, going above 2,500 meters. But this time, it's to break the sound barrier and fly for 100 seconds. Change your spot. She's going to kick in that Weasley. Oosh. She's going to fly right through cloud layer, apparently. You really see the arrow effect on her. She's really flying back. Oh, there it was. Contract complete. She has broken the sound barrier. Time to turn around and head back home. Diving down below the cloud layer. As if you couldn't see it, I don't know why I'm dictating. Yeah, I'm dictating it. Why I'm narrating what you can see. Yeah. Oh, that was a little glitched out voice from air traffic control. Hard banking in there. He's really coming in tight. Val never seems to line up very good. Jeff, he's got it right down. Val, she's side skirting. Serpentining. Is that what it's called? Oh, she's zipping back and forth, back and forth. Can barely land on the runway. Look, she's drifting off it. You get off this runway, like I said, they dip. It's at the ocean. There's no grass there, actually. Because it's a great mod. It's, like I said, it's a little wonky. Back to Jeff on April 1st, and he ain't fooling around. He's got an X-plane contract to go 350 meters per second for 300 seconds. He lifts off, positive lift, gear is up, and he is off. He decides, instead of just flying over the Atlantic this time, he's going to fly down and check out the Bahamas. As he gets up to his leveling out speed, he'll engage the Weasley, crank the speed up to 375, and just cruise down the coastline. You hear that? She has broken sound barrier. He's cruising past Miami, South Beach. There you see the islands off to the left. Throttle her down a little bit. Cuts it over towards the islands. And here are the Bahamas. Bahama Mama. Yeah, you got some Beach Boys playing or something. And on his way back, he did have a spot where one of the Junos cut out, and he had to kill the Weasley. He got a little squirrely there. But now he's banking in over top of this little launch. You're gonna line up for a landing. He wasn't so squared up on this one last time. I talked about how great he did. And he was better at landing than Val, and then he kind of screwed this one up. But the touchdown was rather smooth. I've been one little hot. R&D for mature supersonic flight, satellite air material science, early descent landing, human-rated EDL, basic lottery, early science systems, avionic prototype, early science, and finished with basic solid rocket engines. 3 new contracts and a new rocket, or maybe a missile. The remake of the deadly Nazi V-2 missile, repurposed for science. On April 14th, the KV-2 is set to break the Kármán line and take 90 units of sighted payload up to 100K. As boosting up into space. And it coasts. As it gets up near Appalachia, it'll fire up its engine and go for distance. And there it has broken the Kármán line. You hear that great orbital music, or space music. That's not really orbital, but there it is, firing up that engine, going for distance. We're going for speed. It's all alone in a time of need. There we collect some telemetry science. We blow up some fins. It spins out of control on the way down, crashing into pieces in the ocean. It did record a new record of 102,893 meters high, the highest speed of 1,386 meters per second, which unlocks the downrange 800 kilometers contract. April 29th, we had early material science finished up. Mature supersonic flight tech finished up June 17th. Post-war rocket checked on the 3rd, and on the 4th of July, they have a celebration. Some nice little fireworks launched from the runway, celebrating the Kerbalized independence. Early rocketry finished up August 5th. We picked up an altitude sounding contract to bring 65 units to 100K. September 22nd, basic rocketry finished. September 29th, the KV-2 launches again for that contract. As that once deadly missile, which is now a science machine, goes up one more time. See if we can beat how far we went the last time. There was no science gained from that telemetry report. And now it coasts back through space again. It reaches 101,063 meters. It really seems like it goes a long ways away from Florida there. Definitely the furthest we've ever gone, but nowhere close to the 800 kilometers we need for that downrange contract. In fact, this only goes 250K. Oh, that finishes up the telemetry report there, it looks like. It's always good to gain some extra science. Nose is really getting hot. We have explosions. Fins are out. Ooh, that was a big one. The whole nose cone went off. Now it's just a blunt end heading for the ocean. Runs out of signal because there's nearly nothing left of it, and crash. Parts explode and come into the ocean. Early rocket engines complete on October 8th, followed by early tracking systems on the 29th, and that finishes off 1952. It's 1953. We have a new rocket and a new fighter-style jet. Starting out, completing satellite air and material science, March 26th, after waiting out a thunderstorm. That new rocket is ready to fly on March 29th. It was a nuclear launch vehicle, the Minuteman. Now, repurposed for science, it is renamed the Bioman, as it has a biological payload. Today's mission is to have our first true recovery with fruit flies in that container as it descends through the upper atmosphere. We want to keep it kind of low, getting ready for fairing deployment. Engine cut off, and there's the payload. Look at that container of fruit flies. We will be shooting for the 800 kilometer downrange contract, which we will achieve. We reach 128,931 meters high with a high speed of 2,519 meters per second. As you've seen, we decoupled. That was the word I was looking for. Yes, that's it. And we're going to hit the plasma. There will be explosions. Those poor little batteries are not going to survive. We did just run out of... Oh, that was the comms. That's it. Because of the plasma blackout. And now pointing face for some more things blow up. Luckily, our little fruit flies survived. Epically failed with the parachute. Too early. It looks like certain doom, but no, it does survive. Douche. Somehow. Let's stop at the admin building to pick up local science 2. Then off to mission control to get X-plane supersonic, hold between 400 and 450 meters per second. To do our aerospace, fly 500 meters, and a bio return from 800 kilometers. And we have another 4th of July celebration. The KA-137 Sparrow was ready, but both Jeb and Vale were missing proficiency and mission training to fly it. And the rain will not hold off the Kerbals to celebrate their 4th of July. Through the rain, they love to watch fireworks. They just like explosions, really. It's the Kerbal way. After a nice little celebration and one more week of training, Val is in the cockpit of this new fighter jet. Really check it out. This is some IVA mod and roster props. You can just click on all kinds of stuff. It's amazing. Okay, now July 21st, the KA-137 Sparrow fighter jet. As Val gets ready to light this thing up and take off, I'll say, don't forget to like and subscribe. It's a great time for that little plug, ain't it? Down the runway she goes. Let's see if she can not almost take the tail off. Oh, that was close. She pretty dangerous there with the almost tail strikes. Well, the gear is up. She is now pulling up to her cruising altitude. Banks it to the south to cruise down the coast. Well, she decides to do a little barrel roll first.
Bruh.
She's like, this thing is sweet. It flies like a dream. No wonder they call it the Sparrow. Climb up a little higher. Tricked us, we thought she was there. Where are you going, Val? She's just flying straight out there, guys. Thought she was going to curve and go down the coastline or something. Oh, now here she goes. She's going to start turning now. Nice underbelly shot. We need some missiles on this thing. The Air Force did well with the KA-137 Sparrow. There's the bank turn I thought she was going to do earlier. Now I do believe she's going to level out and fire up the afterburners. Or she's going to trick me again and go inside and check out the cockpit some more. Because this cockpit is really cool. All the little switches and gadgets. SAS, RCS. There's other little mods that make them little screens work. I don't know if I'll be getting them. Yeah, along with the free IVA mod where you get to move around, that's pretty sweet. Alright, looks like she's back towards home, turning in to line up. A great view there we have. There's the runway. Come and land at looks like the shuttle runway. Even though they don't have shuttles yet, I don't know why they would have a shuttle runway, but it's quite a long time from having shuttles. And they got a shuttle runway, they got the old skid strip, and they have the actual runway. Which this thing takes almost the whole runway to stop, so it's kind of a good thing she went for this one. Instead of the shuttle runway, we'll call it the Sparrow runway for now. Now she's really ready for landing. Bring her in, Val, bring her in. I forget which one I think we were saying was better at landing in the last video. One of them definitely was coming in a lot better than the other one. Whatever it was, Val's looked pretty good on this one. It just straightened out a little bit. Throttle, gliding in. And smooth. Throttle down. And just coast. Coast. Engines off. explains what a great landing flight that was. They're telling her to get that thing stopped and turn at the next taxiway. Finally coasting to a stop. August 12th, Bioman number 2. Another bio payload, this time mice, for a contract to go above 80 kilometers and recover. There we get 0 science, so there's none. Have the separation. Heading up to our apoapsis. A nice look up the east coast. Deploy the fairing. There we actually get some science. Down towards Cuba. Another view up the coast. More science collected. There's that scary little flip over again, but we don't experience much heat this time. And our parachute actually works. Right as signal was failing. They're fully deployed, flips around, and coasting for a splash. Mission control to grab low space bio experiments because it needs to be done 3 times. Experimental rocket planes is a series of 4 contracts. They'll be done by job in the new KX-1. Speaking of which, it's August 31st and Jeb has dropped 500 kilometers away at 7,500 meters high. They dropped him a bit further than we figured. He completed, but he didn't make a water landing. He does not make it back. He lights up that engine, flies up, completes his contract, gets a nice shot out of this new rocket plane, modeled after the Bell X1, but we are calling it the KX1, of course, because it's Kerbal. And why wouldn't you? He cuts off the engine and is going to coast a little bit. So the interior of this one is nowhere near as nice as Vale's. This one doesn't get that sweet interior mod IVDV something or another. It's in the mod list. Check the mod list below. Yes, I did put the mod list in this video because I didn't the last time. Viewer retention, I'm going to call that one. Wait, this is actually episode 3. It was episode 2 that I put the mod list in for the viewer retention. Didn't put it in the first one. So if you wanted to get it, you had to watch the second one. If you can hear my dog going crazy back there, knock it off. Alright, job's now turning north because he just figured out that he was going the wrong direction. And he has no way of making it home anyway, so we're gonna head this way. Cruise through this little cloud, because why not? And he's out of fuel, starting to descend down towards the ocean. It looks like there's a storm out in front of him as well. It does glide very nicely though. He cruised for a long way with no power. And he's getting right to sploosh. Bright and early, September 10th, Vale is back in the Sparrow. Taking off. This is the one I had confused earlier, where she'll take off, bank up, head up to the coast. Now she's gonna climb up Throu, dude. Star spanking. Yeah, I was totally off. So many of these flights here, I get confused. I'm just a reporter. I'm just Foxworth human. I'm not a Kerman. I'm not a rocket scientist or a pilot. I just play one on YouTube. Now it looks like she's getting ready to level out and kick in those afterburners, which I thought she was going to do last time. Well, it's because she's got to hold the speed like 450. There it is, she's afterburning. Cruises up north. Makes a nice little turnaround when she gets there. But before she gets there, she's gonna check out the interior of her cockpit once more, because she loves it. Why wouldn't you? Oh, you can do the time warp right here from the cockpit. It tells you warp time 2. And there's all these other little buttons I'm not sure about. Click. Time 1, 2, 3, 2. I mean, you can see I don't need to be telling you, do I? But it's fun. You can just click on stuff. Rasta Pop Manager or something. It's in the description. I think I have to do that before. Oh, and hey, while you're down there, don't forget to like and subscribe. Anytime you're down there, like and subscribe. Tell your buddies. Tell your friends. Jam out this cool little AI music I found. Actually, I found. I told my recording, not the recording, the editing software has AI. Now, like, make me some music, and it made me a couple 5-minute clips. So now we got some nice AI generated music that I can't get copyrighted for. I hope not. Where does AI come up with their music? They probably take it from places. Alright, we're back over the Cape. She's gonna fly sideways. Not sure what her intention was on this maneuver. But once again, she's gonna line up at the shuttle, aka the Sparrow runway, and take the entire thing once again to stop. I do believe after this one we adjust the brakes on this thing so it doesn't take the entire runway to stop. This was an oversized runway at that. And final approach. Get lined up. Maybe it was Val that was having trouble lining up for it, because she ain't so good on this one. See if she gets it straight by the time she gets there, though. Hell yeah, that looks good. She's a little left. Coming in center now. Oh yeah, perfectly center. Look at that. She knows what she's doing. That's why they put her in this. Another perfect, nice landing. This one don't bounce like that first one we had. That thing was insane. And of course, the KX-1, which is might have the same issue, is yet to land on the land. Jeff keeps watering on while he's only one at once, but he splashed it down. Entry, Descent, and Landing Tech finishes on October 25th. Then just before the end of the year, an experimental rocket plane contract for job on the KX-1 to reach 15 kilometers and 400 meters per second. Also an X-plane supersonic for Vale and the Sparrow to hold between 500 and 550 meters per second for 3 minutes. Those will be completed in the next episode and the next year. Thank you for watching this far. Goodbye. And the year is 1954. On February 25th, another Bioman is ready to be launched. The top stage, along with almost half its fuel, has been removed. The Kerbals deemed it to be useless, as this contract is only needing to be above 80,000 kilometers. No, 80 kilometers, not 80,000. That would be 80,000 meters. After some intense heating and pressure, 2 of the fins are destroyed just before booster separation. After the fairing separation, the right way, unlike in KSP2, where it's all janky, you can see they added fins to the recovery capsule to keep it pointed in the right direction on descent. With parachute deployment, it will result in a successful splashdown and the Kerbals will recover it. It's March 17th, and the Irish Kerbals will be celebrating, don't you know? Jeb, back in the KX-1, air launched, hopefully closer this time. I believe last time was 500 kilometers out. This time, I think it's 250. He hasn't made it back to land yet. He's dropped at 10 kilometers high, and he'll need to hit 400 meters per second and climb to 15 kilometers. Oh no, a complete engine failure. It has exploded. He did satisfy the contract beforehand though. Looks like he has made it over land, but he is a ways south of the Cape. Let's see if he can float it back, or if he will once again ditch it in the water. And it appears as if the luck of the Irish was not with Jeb, and he does end up ditching it in the water once again. He has still yet to bring this thing back to put it on land. He's not far from the coast, so recovery is easy. 35 days to replace the engine. On April 2nd, Vale gets back in the Sparrow. After clearance, she heads down the runway. She has a contract to maintain a level flight going between 500 and 500 meters per second without having rocket engines. Up she goes. We get a little onboard camera view, and then she finishes the contract easily. Coming down, she sure does make landings look easy. With a nice glide angle and smooth approach, she just slides it down in like butter. But it is a good thing that it's an awful long runway, because she definitely takes her time getting down to it. And there's the touchdown. And is off and a coast. Getting to the end of the runway, she makes a left-hand turn towards the taxiway. And I think she's going to run out of steam there and park it. Human-related EDL tech finished on May 20th. That's important because it gives us mech Jeb and more smart parts. On May 28th, Vale is back in the Sparrow, ready to take flight once again. Their normal back and forth rotation is thrown off by Jeb still waiting on that engine. Vale's contract for this flight is to reach a height of 10 kilometers and hold the speed between 550 and 600 meters per second. Her engine is fired up. There is some kind of little glitch, and it is slowly going down the runway. The Kraken is going to grab her in a second and make it very tricky looking. Whoa! But she pulled it out and gets up into the sky, where she'll climb to her 10K, hit her afterburners, reach that speed, and come on back. Here she is making that climb as she ignites them afterburners, gets it under control, and up she goes after reaching the 10 kilometers. And satisfying that contract, she makes a wild turn, head back, and lower her altitude. After leveling out, you can see her speed here. It was actually 2 contracts, one to reach 10 kilometers and one to go between 500 and 60 meters a second. She blew past the runway she usually lands on and comes back around to the normal one, where she makes a nice touchdown, and they adjust her brakes so she can stop a little bit quicker than what she has been. She is awarded 2 new ribbons from Final Frontier. She has completed 10 contracts and withstood an acceleration of 8 Gs for 3 seconds. June 14th, Jeb has just been air launched once again in the KX-1 after getting that engine replaced from his last flight. Only being dropped like 150 kilometers out, hopefully he can bring it to the runway this time. He hasn't done that yet. He does a little stunt flying before climbing to altitude. He needs to be between 10 and 20 kilometers, flatten out, and go between 550 and 600 meters per second, and then climb to a height of 20 kilometers. As we can see, he is not far from the coast. Yet, with this tricky flying, he ends up way too far north. As he comes down to try to find the coast, he's like, oh no. And then he runs out of fuel and will once again ditch it into the ocean. Come on, Jeb. He was so close and then thought he could be stylish. And once again, cannot make it to land. He meant to land, but it wasn't there for it. He didn't want to land. Not on a runway with this thing. He gets a ribbon for 7 Gs of acceleration. Experimental rocket planes for Jeb to go 28 kilometers and hit 700 meters per second, which will also break Mach 2. Vale gets what Jeb basically just did. 20k, 600 kilometers, but she doesn't have a rocket plane. Early Science Tech finished July 2nd, and the Bioman is ready to launch July 4th. This is the final contract, so also the last Bioman flight. The Kerbal scientists have learned as much as they feel they will from flies and mice in low orbit. And once again, the fins start exploding from all the heat and pressure right before flame out and separation. It just wouldn't be Kerbal without a little bang. The upper stage / capsule coasts up to just above 100 kilometers, the mark for the contract. As the heat dissipates, and then the thing I just won't let go of. How nice fairing separation is, unlike that second wannabe game. Maybe I'll start calling it KSP Path. Because at this point, I wouldn't even really say it's half a game. Okay, back to the capsule, flipping around as it starts to descend. A good thing they stuck those little fins on it. It orientates correctly and gets ready for chute deployment. As this makes its way to the ocean, we had some footage corruption. Lots was purchased in the R&D, like satellite air electronics, research, primitive solar panels, satellite era science, early avionics and probes, basic avionics and probes, early flight control, and lunar range communications. On November 24th, Vale completed her contracts of going 600 meters per second and climbing to 20 kilometers. There were 8 upgrade points, 1 for the VAB, 1 for the spaceplane hangar, and 6 to R&D. Jeb took a mission course, but they didn't mount the KX-1 for the air launch. After they did, it wasn't refueled. And it won't be ready until after January 1st of 1955. It's 1955. And the Kerbals will go higher, faster, and further than they have before. January 11th, Jeb is dropped in the KX-1, 325 kilometers out at an altitude of 13 kilometers. He has 3 contracts: reach 700 meters per second, climb to 28 kilometers, and break Mach 2, which is 686 meters per second. So the 700 does that. He is able to achieve both speed contracts, but only climbs to 24 kilometers before a critical engine failure. He can just make out the coast in the distance, but unfortunately, once again, a water landing. Someday, Jeb, someday you'll put that thing down on the runway. Now, mission control. The Kerbals pick up early K-plane development, long-haul continental flight. Prevail to fly 700 kilometers while staying under 7 kilometers high, the stratosphere low. On the runway, early morning, January 26th. Vale is ready to fly further than any Kerbal has before. She also has an X-plane supersonic contract to maintain a speed between 650 and 700 meters per second for 3 minutes. There is a waypoint 350 kilometers to the north, somewhat near where Wallops Air Force Base would be. Unfortunately, I didn't have Dreamliner expansion downloaded yet at the time of recording, so she won't be doing a flyby, and that is rather disappointing. But after reaching her cruising altitude, she fires up the afterburner to get that speed contract. Then, once she gets to the waypoint, she turns around to make her trip back. It would appear Vale pushed a little too hard. A minor engine malfunction. Lucky for her, the Sparrow is a twin engine. She can ease it back to the KSC with just the one. She does indeed make it back safely, something Jeb has yet to do. And touchdown. After a long glide down the runway, she'll turn off onto the taxiway. Didn't take long for the Kerbal engineers to get Jeb a new engine in the KX-1. February 8th, Jeb's attempt number 2 at 28 kilometers. He fires the engine, it gets a little squirrely before leveling out and starting his climb. He tops out at 30 kilometers. Almost running out of fuel, he begins the descent. With one final effort to get to the skid strip, he uses the last of his fuel. After changing some settings, the ocean disappears while he's lining up for the skid strip. We were getting worried for Jeb, but he splashes down in the invisible ocean. Back in mission control, they select extreme long distance of at least 2,000 kilometers, intercontinental, and X-plane supersonic jet aircraft, no rockets, of 700 meters per second for 3 minutes. With all 4 experimental rocket plane contracts being completed, X-plane's height is now unlocked. Jeb's first of those will be 30 kilometers, which he just did, and then he'll also break Mach 3 of 1,029 meters per second. A quick look in the tracking station of where Vale will have to fly to. There's her waypoint way out in the Pacific. Shortly after sunrise, March 4th, Vale once again to fly further than any Kerbal ever. Interesting, after the engine swap, the action group for the afterburners is no longer there. Them Kerbal engineers will have to take a look into that. After establishing positive lift, she begins her turn to head out towards the waypoint. She will climb to 4 kilometers, lock in, and cruise at 325 meters a second while over the land. Once Val gets out over the Gulf, she'll engage the afterburner, set the speed to 725 meters per second, and cruise for 3 minutes. After an epic flyby, we are treated to an in-cockpit view She reaches the waypoint, turns around, heading for home. She sets the speed to 520 meters per second and re-engages the afterburners. Apparently, she is not worried about fuel consumption. As she gets over the mountains of Mexico, she realizes fuel is burning quite fast. So she shuts down the afterburners. She then proceeds to fly straight into a thunderstorm cloud, reducing speed to 420 meters per second. Noise. In an effort to save more fuel. Right in the middle of that cloud, it got real dark and poofs out, and you just gotta love the volumetric clouds. As she gets somewhere around the middle of the Gulf, she's got about a quarter of a tank left. So closing in on the Florida coast, she reduces speed once again to 275 meters per second and drops to 25 meters. With the Cape in view, she drops to 1500 meters, lines up for another smooth landing. Goes in cockpit again, showing us coming in, line up nice and well. You can hear the landing gear coming down. Maybe someday we'll actually get a landing from that view. Don't touch down too early. So there's the shadow. Line in and another smooth landing. Unfortunately, she goes just past the taxiway. Contract complete. So, other continents look much like this one, but they are warmer or colder. And we are not sure flying so far is good for Kerbals. It is spring 1955, and we have an incoming news special.
In 1952, the International Council of Scientific Unions, one of the world's oldest international bodies, announces that the 1957 to 1958 period of solar maximum, the peak of the 11-year-long solar cycle, would coincide with an international scientific project known as the Geophysical Year. This was an effort designed to promote healthy peacetime competition in the wake of the Cold War. and simultaneously promote global interest in Earth sciences. Not many take the geophysical year seriously.
The Dwight Eisenkerman
Administration announces that the United States would participate in the International Geophysical Year by attempting to launch the world's first Earth-circling satellite.
It is like nothing else so much, in my mind, as the radar room in a big battleship or some other complex thing that really is entirely beyond my comprehension, but is still capable of exciting my wonderment.
Following the announcement from President Eisenkerman, they began construction of 3 new launch pads. To mission control, where they grab 2 new contracts, X-plane supersonic, to go a speed of 750 meters per second with no rocket engines allowed. Jet engines only. That'll be for Val to do. And then the new low space film return, go just above 80 kilometers and cover a downrange distance of 100 kilometers and return the film. And for that, the Kerbals have started to build their new rocket, the Kerbkin P900 with the early film camera. It's going to take 196 days to build. Early in the morning of May 20th, before the sunrise, Jeb is airdropped over the Atlantic 350 kilometers out at 13,750 meters high. His contract is to break Mach 3, which is 1,029 meters per second, holding level flight for 5 seconds, staying below 13,000 meters. So after dropping below the 13 kilometer mark, he ignites the engine, got a little bit squirrely before leveling out, and seemed to drift north. After the 5 seconds, he pulls up for the climb to 30 kilometers. A low fuel warning at 27 kilometers, but Jeb pushes on. Completely engulfed in flames of the atmospheric heating, just going over 1,950 meters per second, he gets just under 31,000 meters high. Out of fuel, a decision must be made. The Cape now seems too far to the south. Trying will most likely end up another splash down in the ocean once again, or attempt to find Langley or Wallops. He chooses to go inland and north for Langley or Wallops, when there is a flickering of light in the distance. Could it be? Yes, it is a runway, but which one is it? He's lined up nicely, and it is Langley, but Jeb is losing speed and altitude fast. Will he make it? There's a little bit of water here. He's got to clear that. He clears the water, but he will be forced to land short of the runway. But he did land on land for the first time. We will congratulate him on that, and he gets a few new ribbons from Frontier. Significant contract, 20 contracts, Mach 3, and the weird one, 4,000 meter mountain lander. Yeah, I don't think it was 4,000 meters at Langley, but okay. May 26th, Mission Control gets its upgrade finished. But boo, nothing happened. Last time they got that big dish. This time nothing visual, just 7 new contract spots. Up next in 18 days, after refueling and a new paint job, the KA-37 Sparrow for Vale to go 750 meters per second. After 7 days of mission training, Vale is ready on June 21st. She is somewhere new at Moab for a little flight around the desert. Her new paint job is from Turd, T-U-R-D, Textures Unlimited Repo Department. Not sure why her cockpit's glowing yellow. That takeoff was a little bit quick, she almost did a tail stroke. But she's going to fly up to 3,500 meters, set her speed to 755 meters per second, crank on those afterburners, and away she'll go. As she turns and gets to a level here. Nice little look of Moab and Edwards Air Force Base. There we go, level now. Afterburner's going. And now she'll have to hold her speed once she gets to 755 for 3 minutes. And then she'll turn around and set the navigation back for Edwards. And now it's a good little cockpit view. There's the turnaround. Then the Edwards Air Force Base, Moab, that whole area textures from the STS. Something in our links in the description. The runways and that were from Dreamliner's expansion, also in the description. But yeah, the painted ones are part of the texture here as we fly over. And check out all the lake bed painted runways. At least one space should have landed in the lake bed. Not in Kerbal yet. We don't have space shuttles, but it's a real life space shuttle. But I hit some of Dreamliner's runways, the KK stacks, like down underneath the painted ones. I left his Moab ones whatever, even though it has it south of Edwards and the Moab base is really north of Edwards, but whatever. I got Moab and Edwards on a cool textured map thingy. Should be vantage number 2, but I haven't adjusted the runways and everything yet. And on our final drop, on our final approach, she drops to 1,500 meters and reduces speed to 175 meters per second. Coasts in. Brought the gear down there at some point. I missed that. Hopefully you didn't. Like butter. Can't believe it's not butter. Well, it's not margarine either. It's flying an airplane on a runway in the desert. And she just totally just killed the engine right there. Just shut him right off. She's like, I'm just gonna coast it. I believe she thought she was a little closer to the ground than she was. That's good. Just exploded in there. It just kind of glides and floats for quite a long time. Is it down yet? Is it? Oh no, there's a shadow. And oh, there we're down. That was might have been a little abrupt. Because we kind of thought we were on the ground. We were still just floating away. Gives a good old stop. She gets ribbon for going Mach 2. July 26th. Basic avionics and probes is unlocked. After an 8-day rollout, the P900 is ready to launch on October 30th. The countdown begins. Ignition and off it goes. Set to go just over 80 kilometers in height and at least 150 kilometers downrange. Starting the gravity turn, it is in position. We'll be locking to the service prograde in just a second. There it goes, following service prograde. Starting to get some of that upper atmospheric pressure going on into the immense heating. Following the orbit prograde. I believe there was a mishap and it stages a little bit early, but it still manages to push its way through. And there is the actual separation coming up upon fairing deployment and the opening of the bay to start taking those wonderful photographs. Final separation to show off the heat shield, pointing retrograde. Rotating to get more views of everything, and also hoping that a little spin might help with the heating on re-entry. And here comes the heat, and mistakes may have been made with not a big enough heat shield. Oh no, things have exploded. We have lost the film, we have lost the parachutes, we have lost just about every stabilizing fin. They were testing, and somehow the first edition got pushed out instead of the second edition that had the bigger heat shield, and it explodes into the ocean. But they remodeled the new Kerbalized PK9000 with a bigger heat shield, and they'll be coming off next year. Primitive solar panels finishes up October 31st. Happy Halloween! And on November 10th, basic solid rocket engines finishes, and that will be the end of 1955. And in recent tech news, satellite era science was unlocked on January 17th, 1956. Here's a quick look at our tech tree. Now we take you to the early morning of May 29th, 1956 at the Army's White Sands Complex, where once again the United Kerbals attempt to get photos from the edge of space. Only 80 kilometers for this one, yet the last attempt ended in failure due to an inaccurate or incorrect size heat shield. So, with the redesigned Kerbalized PK9000, it's time for an attempt. Everything is normal, Everything's normal. Everything is nominal for countdown and ready for go. Engine ignition, and away it goes. We're heading off to the southeast over the desert. I believe I attempted to shoot it towards the Gulf of Mexico. Not I, the Kerbals. A thick layer of clouds there was on this day. The craft has reached its target apoapsis, or the craft hasn't reached the apoapsis just. Coming up on fairing deployment, there it goes. The opening of the bay doors. They're getting their camera views. Point the camera towards the ground. Although with that massive amount of cloud coverage, they're not getting much pictures of the ground. Let it rotate and get pictures of the space. Look inside this thing. That's supposed to be a camera. No, it was actually the Science Junior kit, but for this, they consider it a low-tech camera. There should have been a camera. And there it is with the bigger heat shield. Will it work this time? Flip, orientate for re-entry. Let's see, what kind of trajectory did I get? There's Boca Chica. Yeah, we didn't quite make it to the Gulf, did we? I think we're bombing somewhere, Texas or Oklahoma. Oh, there's Boca Chica. You can kind of see it through the cloud layer. Turn and get some pictures of Boca Chica. Oh, I do believe the cut of that music means we have hit the atmosphere. Get oriented right here, camera. Get oriented to the right. You need to survive this. We need to survive this. Alright, orientation is correct now. Let's watch this thing descend through the atmosphere. Close the doors. Oh yeah. Why did our parachutes just deploy and get ripped right off, I think? That was no good. Well, we're probably not gonna survive this one because our parachutes just ripped right off. Why did our parachutes deploy so early? Deployment safe. Well, they apparently weren't safe, were they? They said they're supposed to deploy when they're safe, but they clearly weren't very safe. There we go, through the cloud. We're coming down mighty fast into the desert ground. And the stormy... Oh! There is no recovery. It's all green. Is it saying we did the contract? Contract is complete. It's letting us have it, yo. A low space film return. Somehow we returned it. It looked like it exploded to me, but I'm gonna go with it. Now to mission control. Advanced biological suborbital experiment has come from that new science tech we grabbed, but we are going back with low space film return once again to this time go to 100 kilometers and a downrange distance of 300 kilometers and return the film. Let's hope our parachutes don't get ripped off and they can actually return the film correctly this time. On June 12th, early flight control was unlocked. They get 8 parts for 14,000 Kirk bucks. As Jeb gets ready for possibly the KX-1's final flight, as construction begins on the new K-Wing class. With the K-Wing 1R, it'll take 242 days to build that. Jeb with the KX-1, simply needing to take off, no airdropping this time, climb to 33.5 kilometers, and land anywhere, which he's good at because he's never landed on the runway yet. The plan is to head north from the Cape, hopefully come down at Langlair Wallops, actually land on the runway, but he makes his turn to the north, begins his climb, and oh no, engine failure, only managing around 10,000 meters, nowhere near his 33.5 kilometers, but good thing he isn't very far. Maybe he can pull off a real landing. But the air brakes seem to have been locked on, and by the time Jeb realizes it, it's a little too late, and he comes up short of the runway once again. After a second true flying wing design is released, known as the K-Batwing, the K-Wing 1R is renamed the K-Delta R2. Vale and the Sparrow on the 22nd of June, maintaining a speed of 825 meters per second for 3 minutes and flying to sector NZRT for a crew report. June 27th, 1956 to 57 orbital rocketry, 1956 to 57 solid rocket engines, high-speed flight, and hypersonic flight are all queued up for unlocking. August 23rd, the second PK-9000's construction is finished, and a 12-day rollout begins. 5 days later, Lunar Range Communications Tech unlocks. Ooh, that was a toughie. Giving the Kerbals Comtech 1 and the ability to start upgrading the tracking station with 18 new parts for 43,000 Kerb bucks, and then 50,000 more for the tracking station upgrade, boosting the DSN to 8.41 Gs and allowing patch conics, taking 65 days. September 5th from the Cape. Just in case of a parachute failure like last time, they don't want to be dropping the second PK-9000 on anyone. It's time for launch. Sent on a northeasterly course to head up the east coast, but still stay way out in the Atlantic just in case. It should get some real nice photos of the east coast. A perfect fairing separation. Nominal booster separation, setting up for re-entry. There's a sight those Kerbals were hoping for. The parachutes did in fact deploy this time, as R2-D2 descends through the clouds. I can't believe I didn't think of that earlier. Tell me that does not look like R2-D2, but look at that image in the background too. Oh, it's just amazing. Ooh, and I heard the sound of the parachutes fully deploying as it comes in and safely splashes down. The low space film return. Excellent! Both the media and our scientists will be excited to see these lovely shots. With the final low space film return having a height requirement of 140 kilometers, they also grabbed crossing the belt just in case. The Kerbal engineers began construction of the Kerbalized 1 to be the first orbital satellite, finishing out 1956. The tracking station upgrade is done November 3rd, with 1956 to 1957 orbital rocketry finishing 2 days later on the 5th. unlocking 13 more parts for 28,000 more curb books. It's the KBC with the Kerbalized Realism special update. The final flight of the KX-1, and it has some issues. The front landing gear light has a critical failure. There's a data malfunction in the data transmitter, but that's not going to stop Jeb from taking off on November 6th. The final ending of 1956. Up he goes. He pulls it to 60 degrees and just heads straight up like a space shuttle until his Appalachia says he's at like 34,000. Cuts the engine and coasts up to his 33, and then he decides to do a Jeb style maneuver to turn around and go back and land for the first time ever. Jeb has yet to land on a runway, and he finally pulls it off in this one. A little look ahead, I guess. But first, he has to complete this crazy Jeb maneuver of an inverted, like, backflip. He thought a little thrust might help spin around, but it didn't really appear to do much. He just needs to hit a little thicker atmosphere. There he gets it leveled out, heading back to the Cape. Ignites the engine one last time, burning the last drop of fuel he's got. And there he has run out. And it's time to coast. Will he make it? Nice little flyby shot there. Landing gear coming down. He's looking good. Lined up well. Adding a tap of air brake there. Looks like he's coming a little too hot. Look at this, perfectly over the runway. Even with manufactured stuff. He's going to put it down. And they'll retire the KX-1. Success. And the Sparrow for its final flight, January 8th. Unlike the KX-1, which is being replaced with the more capable Delta R2, the Sparrow just has too many malfunctions. Along with, after this speed contract, it's not capable of doing any more, nor is the USAF's tech able to produce a more capable air-breathing aircraft. After doing a few crew reports at different specified locations, she'll max out at 910 meters per second and hold for 3 minutes. The contract is to do anywhere between 900 and 1,000, but 910 is all it's capable of doing. And then, like always, she returns home fine. Unlike Jeb and the KX-1, who, after many attempts, only ever landed on a runway once, with the very final flight of the KX-1. From the White Sands Complex, Pad 33, on February 2nd, the Kerbkin BK9000 is heading to 140 kilometers for a low space film return. Looks like it is off and on its way. It bursts through the cloud layer. You can see the runway in the background. Now it's locked on to the surface prograde. Gets to orbit prograde. Target axis has reached. Starts the plane out. Gets ready for fairing separation.
A few moments later.
Engine relight for the final push. As long with going 240 kilometers, they also want a downrange distance of 400 kilometers. The hope was also to push it to the Gulf, which they fell a little short. Their booster, and then that second little cap that covered the heat shield comes off and bounces off the booster, which is always a funny little effect. And it gets ready for final orientation, so it can drop down through the atmosphere, and then we go to the inside camera view to get a little look at the plasma heating. But unfortunately, after this view, the external cameras kind of glitch out on us a little bit. Oh, and the fins just blew off. But other than our fins on the top to help keep us pointed in the right direction, everything else was fine. Parachute deployment. There you can see where the fins used to be. And like I said, our camera's a little funky. We're kind of got an upside down view. Then it flips around right. Then it's starting to go back around a little weird. As we got R2-D2 once again coming in for a ground landing this time. Pretty sure he landed in the ocean last time. There he is. A successful return. They received 1 science credit for planetary photography. History has been made. It was late in the evening, February 22nd, 1957, when the Kerbalized 1 was finished and started its 7-day rollout to Launch Complex 26, Pad A. March 1st, after waiting out some storms, the skies broke and they were able to launch. The Kerbalized 1, mounted on top a modified Greenstone missile, is ready as the countdown goes down. Ignition. Clamp is released. It is away the first ever attempt at going orbital. Will they succeed, or will it be an epic failure, allowing the Prussians to become the first? Ascending through the clouds with the nominal trajectory, everything is looking good so far. Punching through the upper atmosphere, you can see just how big of a storm it was they had to wait out. After the target apoapsis is achieved, throttle is cut back, it planes out as it enters a somewhat coast phase, as A7 engine does not have a second ignition. It must burn all the way through. Moments before the apoapsis is reached, full throttle for that final push of the bottom stage. When the Greenstone runs out of propellant, there goes the first group and the second group of 3, and that will get us to orbit. There it is, and then we decouple for that last tiny little push just to make sure orbit has been achieved. And now, as it just tumbles and collects a little science, we get a great view of the Earth. There's a look of the orbital path, taking it right across Africa before it descends into the night. Here it is, going over Africa. Look at the Sahara Desert. Now, let's see what kind of achievements they made. Uncrewed speed record of 3,000 meters per second. The main purpose, orbit Earth. Huzzah! There is no such thing as a final frontier. Moon probe strategy. Soon they'll be heading for the moon. Uncrewed altitude record of 210 kilometers. An uncrewed altitude record of 280 kilometers. And it did cross into the radiation belt. The mission confirmed the presence of 2 radiation belts around the planet. Early data suggests the levels are extreme. The 3 top Kerbals of this achievement are ecstatic. Starting off May 24th, 1957, Jeb takes the K Delta R2 for its maiden flight, and to reach a height of 37 kilometers, he's off and away. Shortly after this flight, new tech will be unlocked, allowing for better engines and a new secret rocket plane that will be revealed in a future episode. Replacing the engines will also take some time, pushing any future flights of this into upcoming episodes as well. Jeb climbs at a 45-degree angle, cutting engines with an apoapsis of 38.5 kilometers, knowing as he coasts and flattens out, that will put him just over the 37 kilometer mark. Now, where to put this thing down at, with little fuel left. Looks like things get a little wonky there for a minute as he's descending down. Then he pulled it under control. And well, it's a good thing Jeb is experienced at water landings, because he don't have any fuel to get anywhere. He had hopes of swinging over to the Bahamas, but that unfortunately did not happen. Hold on tight, Jeb. You're coming in kinda hot. Oh! Survived. Everything is good. Congratulations, a new record. Crude altitude of 35 kilometers and the X-plane's high content. As we move to July 2nd, a modified greenstone missile, now the Jupiter K, has a large biological payload, an amphibian close to Kerbals as monkeys are to humans. The capsule inside the fairing houses a frog named Cable to study the effects of spaceflight. The mission profile is to be above 80 kilometers and reach an orbital velocity over 1,500 meters per second and return it safely. There is the separation of the capsule. The scientists can't wait to see what, if any, effects weightlessness and high G's will have. Get ready, for now is the scary part of re-entry. It appears to have made it safely through re-entry, and parachute is now deployed. Fully deployed, and now it will safely splash down. Advanced biological suborbital experiment. Well done! The subject survived, and the scientists are now examining it and the collected data. The action continues. July 15th. The Keck Explorer 2 sits on top a greenstone Jupiter K missile. Its task to be the world's first scientific satellite to transmit actual scientific data back. Because unfortunately, the Explorer 1's battery didn't even last one single orbit and transmitted zero science. The Explorer 2 has tiny little solar panels and has a few extra batteries as well. The contract on top of that states an apogee over 800 kilometers and a perigee over 125 kilometers. That way, the Geiger-Muller counter and the micrometeorite detector can get the best data possible. There it is in all its glory, ready to transmit back data. A look at the final orbit. Looks to have just satisfied the fine print of the contract with an 837 kilometer by 127 kilometer orbit. Uncrewed altitude records of 350, 420, 490, 560, 630, and 700 kilometers. Also data that has proven the existence of the Van Kerman belts. The first of the unfortunate news, October 30th, Bill Kerman retired. Moving on, later that day, the Frog Hopper number 2 was ready. As same as before, a Jupiter K from LK-26A, only this time the scientists want to know about an orbital velocity above 2,000 meters per second. After another perfect fairing separation, we can see the Frog Hopper 2. I guess in Bill's honor, we shall name this one Bill Jr., breaking the fourth wall. I added the re-entry particle effects mod. It's a little much. So if you know how to get the Mirage Dev one, I couldn't figure it out. I would like that one. That'd be cool. Just like before, the subject survived and the scientists are collecting data. Oh no. More unfortunate news.
God, please,
November 20th,
no!
Bob also retires, leaving just Vale and Jeb. But both of them are set to retire early 1958. You better tune in next time to find out what the Kerbals will do with no Kerbinaut. We start with the sad news on January 26th of Jebediah's retirement, followed by Valentina a month later on February 24th. The KACA is now out of pilots, though it is said President Eisenkerman will soon sign the National Aeronautics and Space Act, bringing all the departments together under one agency. Moving along to March 15th, the third and final Greenstone Frog Hopper, finishing off the Advanced Biological Suborbital Experiment contracts, going above 80 kilometers, reaching an orbital velocity of 3,000 meters per second, along with a suborbital return contract wanting 90 kilometers and 3,100 meters per second. After a nominal fairing separation and then reaching the 90 kilometers, the final push to get that orbital speed up. After the kerosene is depleted, the capsule is decoupled and orientated for re-entry. Coming into the atmosphere, it begins that plasma heating, just getting a little bit warm, I'd say. Nothing the heat shield can't handle though. After just a brief moment, it slows down enough to cool down with the parachute deploying after a safe altitude. Final deployment and splash down. Success! Sploosh! The advanced biological sample has survived. The scientists are now examining it and the data that was collected, along with the engineers examining the craft very keenly. On June 18th, the Keck Explorer 3 from Complex 26A lifts off to be the first atmospheric analysis satellite. It is carrying a barometer and a thermometer to get some readings from near space. A final push from the Greenstone rocket first stage. Then it'll decouple into a cluster of little sergeants, into a cluster of 3 little sergeants, to the final little sergeant, topping off the orbit. There it is in all its glory, sending back that wonderful science. Temperature readings from around the globe, and barometric pressure, which there should be none in space. A look upon it and the other 2 explorer orbits. The information returned has allowed the scientists to make more accurate predictions of the weather. Next up, get a camera in orbit. June 18th, 1958, Congress drafts the National Aeronautics and Space Act, abolishing the KACA, establishing the new American Aeronautics Space Administration, CASA, is born. They quickly recruit 3 of the top test pilots, LDTV Kerman, Tony Kerman, and Sconebone Kerman. What's this? A break in the fourth wall? Those would be 3 of my top contributing subs, with likes and comments and helping feed that algorithm. As I don't have channel members yet, thank you for your continued support. If you haven't yet, hit that like and subscribe for more worthless but fun content. Okay, back to the program. All 3 pilots start proficiency training for the K Delta R2, finishing up September 8th. July 30th, RD gets upgraded. Boo! There are no new buildings or anything. There are only 2 available spots for mission training, taking 5 days. LDTV and Sconebone take those. Wasting no time, as soon as training is finished, Sconebone hops in the K Delta on September 13th. On the runway at Edwards, after a glance inside, the engines ignite, and off down the runway he goes. His mission for this will be to reach an altitude of 42.5 kilometers. Tracking good. Starting to pull. And we have liftoff. Sconebone reports it is very unstable upon takeoff. He can get a good look at the golf course out to the right, but he's a little more worried about getting this plane under control. He begins to climb to find out the landing gear are stuck. They will not retract. This may be an issue. But he pulls up even harder, climbing. Warnings go off. Fuel is low. He pushes just a little more and cuts, leaving just a tad of fuel. He looks around, taking it all in. Currently, higher than any Kerbal before. As apogee is reached, the jet stalls and begins to flip and roll. Sconebone reports, "It's like one hell of a roller coaster, but I might get sick." There were no official reports as to any vomit. Just before hitting the cloud layer, he is able to regain control, pulling up maybe a little hard, but no real issue when looking to the left. Is that some major refraction, or is Sconebone hallucinating? The Vandenberg launch sites are floating in the air? We better go investigate this. After zipping over there, yes, it's true. Somehow, the Vandenberg launch sites are floating. Knowing there isn't much fuel left, he gives one last boost. And poof, flame out. Let's try and put this down on the beach, or whatever is flat down over there. He touches down with a bounce. A ridiculous bounce at that. Alright, let's put this in easy now. And boing, it goes into a backflip. Oh no, this isn't good. Is he gonna? Bang. Boom. Boosh. Only lost the vertical stabilizer. After coming to a stop, all nose up, he's recovered and awarded 2 ribbons. His first for landing on Kerbin, and one for withstanding an acceleration of 6 Gs for more than 3 seconds. Due to that scary nature of what just happened, the astronaut complex begins upgrading to allow Kerbals to EVA off the surface, aka bail out, November 1st. After some changes and inspections, it turns out there were no batteries. Being why the landing gear wouldn't retract, one might think Sconebone was sabotaged. So the engineers added batteries, some science equipment, upgraded the cockpit, and slid the rear landing gear back a little. LDTV is headed down the runway, ready to lift off, and there it goes. Look at that, the landing gear does retract. After cutting engines, he reports that he believes he got to altitude much easier with more fuel left than Sconebone when he flew. Coasting up to 45 kilometers mission height, he pulls back and begins to look around for Earth. Floating up to just over 48 kilometers, as he is falling back down, upside down, he lights the engines so he can stall out and fall down and land at Vandenberg. Fourth wall again. I installed the runway for landings and put all the launch pads and buildings back on the ground. There are lots of graphs and charts in the newer cockpit. Oh, I can see the runway. I have visuals. As he drops down through the clouds, there it is. Let's line up and bring this on in. He's not far away. It's right there, yo. Silly old Kerbals and their little chatter. But yeah, there you can see some of the launch sites and stuff that I put back on the ground. And foreshadowing for the next episode, I put everything over here by the runway and everything's down this nice flat area now, and I added more. Vandenberg's gonna look a lot better now. Gliding in smoothly, unlike what Sconebone did. Let's see if this is going to be one of those deals like Jeb and Vale, where Vale landed on the runway every time. And I don't know if Jeb ever did land on the runway. He did land on land once, but I don't think Jeb ever put it down on the runway. But there he is, smooth like butter. The new science paid off. Rewards to boldly go 1. 15,000 Kerbucks for Earth's grassland. LDTV is awarded the same 2 ribbons that Sconebone got. If you stayed this long, you're in for a special holiday treat. It's Score, the Christmas rocket. A newly designed rocket, this one with a special purpose. To be the first communication satellite launched on December 18th. Instead of a separate satellite, the whole damn rocket is an antenna launched into a 45-degree inclination at an orbital height of 150 kilometers. It makes a few orbits, broadcasting President Eisenhower's message to the world. Merry Christmas to all the world. You are hearing my voice come to you from outer space, wishing peace upon the world. It's a new year for both humans and Kerbals alike. 2025 for you, and 1959 for the Kerbals. January 20th, Sconebone Kerman taking off from Edwards to fly above 51 kilometers and land on that new runway in Vandenberg. As he takes off, he points near vertical, like 60 degrees or something. After hitting the 51 kilometers, he levels out for just a second, then points towards Vandenberg, basically heading straight down. There will be no stalls and spinning out of control this time. Apparently, them G's got to him a little bit that last time. He pops out from the clouds and gets clearance to fly over the new launch facility. Those seem a little close to the end of the runway, don't you think? That's definitely a very Kerbal-like design. Cruising to the runway for a soft, buttery landing. We move ahead to January 30th. The new Thorn series rocket. This being the Thorn Cable Star, with the first ever commercial payload, the COMS-1 test satellite. It didn't take companies long to jump on aboard. After the SCORE demonstration this past December, launched from the pad at LK-26A, going for an inclination above 30 degrees, and apoapsis between 2,500 kilometers and 4,000 kilometers, and a periapsis above 420 kilometers. Nice, smoke them up for that one. The payload is released. It burns its tiny booster to push into the final orbit. Vessel ownership transferred. The contract completed successfully, and the satellite has been transferred back to the customer. Jumping ahead to May 21st, it's the Thorn Cable Star Reset, Weapons Research Establishment Satellite. Launching once again from the pad at LK-26A, its purpose is to demonstrate the ability and uses of a polar orbit, along with the ability to perform a retrograde re-entry deorbit burn. Suborbital re-entry is one thing, but coming back from an actual orbit is a whole different ballgame. Reignition of the engine above the Mitten of Michigan to push for the final orbit. As it continues north, you can see the northern lights as it's about to fly over them, and will cut its engines above the North Pole. It descends into the darkness and gets ready for retro fire. As it enters the atmosphere, it appears to be in, a radial end position? As the nose cone rapidly heats up, it's orientated retrograde in hopes that the engine bell can withstand a higher heat. The heat dissipates, it flips back around, and boom! The entire thing just explodes. They did successfully get into a polar orbit, giving the scientists many ideas. Early Kerbal spaceflight era science finishes on June 12th, starting off June 27th. The upgrade to the astronaut complex is finished. The whole building gets a second story and one massive increase to the flagpole. It's like they're compensating or something, I don't know. June 29th, LD TV Kerman gets ready to take off from Fairford Runway, that place over there in England or wherever it was at. If you've seen that live stream I did, the bonus episode. Well, from that, realizing the spy capabilities of the Batwing, the American government strap on some cameras and plan on sending him across Soviet Russia. While CASA can also gain some much needed high altitude science, getting a look at some clouds, because that's about all you can see from 19,000 meters. He does eventually get over some nice land where you can see some stuff. See, right there in that little camera, you can see some ground under him. A little zoom in on it. He reports the spy camera works well. Even a little view of the Northern Lights. As he flies deeper into the heart of the motherland Russia, it turns from grassland to desert. The spy camera picking up good footage for both CASA and the military. As he flies over Baikonur, Kazakhstan, he reports lots of activity and snaps a few good photos. September 12th, news comes from the east. The Soviets have made a huge leap in the space race. For they, with the Kerbalized rocket and a small probe, have hit the moon. And at this time, CASA has no answer. December 2nd, from LK3, CASA attempts to send the world's first weather satellite up. It appears some Kerbal installed a new camera upside down, and lots of new cameras set all over the reliable Thorn cable star Tyros 1 television infrared observation satellite. Back to those camera views. Look at it go. Nice shot looking back at Cape Canaveral. Blasting through the clouds, hitting max Q at an altitude of 9.9 kilometers. Looking back for main engine cutoff. Then, right into the inner stage for the upper stage engine ignition and release as it pulls away. A view of the payload, somehow missing fairing separation, and an unfortunate unknown failure resulted in a failure to reach orbit. Bruh. It will fall back into the atmosphere and burn up and explode. Kaboom! Bringing this and the 1950s to an end. Thank you for watching, and goodbye.